Yep, you are.
Okay.
Welcome to The Leaders Who Care, a podcast powered by Dynamis Group. We are here to give the stage and support to those committed to create a positive and lasting impact, way beyond the profits and margins, the leaders of the world who care for others and serve a bigger purpose. Join us on the journey of creating a better, more caring world. And now to your host, Marian Timelkov.
Hello, dear audience. I'm super excited today to welcome a very special guest. And we are on a mission, as you know, to bring some of the most caring leaders from every corner of the world. And today we have Dr. Karin Lubin joining us on the Leaders Who Care. Karin, welcome and thank you for joining.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited actually to meet you finally. I've heard about you.
It is a pleasure to have you. It's really you're actually one of those leaders that inspires me a lot in terms of the passion test that what you do and the mission you have. And since I really I'm in the field of helping leaders who care attract and retain exceptionally gifted talent. I would love to talk about really the passion test and what you do, what attracted you first in that place.
Uh-huh.
As there's
Good
so much
question.
we can really touch on, because it's not easy to know what you want to do at a certain moment of your life, and what do you do when you hit that difficult moment? How do you bring that passion for life or that passion for career? So there's so much we can talk about. But first of all, how did you decide, or how did you end up to do what you do today?
Well, it starts way back, and I was a teacher, and then I was an administrator in public schools. And I remember there was this moment when I thought, I'm going to die if I stay here. I really thought that I was going to die, because I was working like 3 jobs in one as an administrator. I was constantly working, had no life, and I had really lost the connection to my heart, because I was so in my head. And I really got that. There had been 3 other administrators who had all had serious health problems. And Marian, I thought, okay, that's going to be me next. Oh, I can't go down that. I mean, it was like the big wake up call, you know? And I think if anybody has ever known anyone or experienced burnout, that was me. I was so burned out, I couldn't even feel. Like, if you asked me how I felt, I was so numb. I couldn't tell you. So, and I loved education. I loved kids. I loved the parents. I loved the teachers. I loved everything about it. And I just lost it one day. Like the system, I thought I was changing the system, and instead, Marian, the system changed me in some way. And so I had to kind of really step out of that. Once I stepped out, it took me a full year to kind of fill myself up. Now, I wish I had had the passion test process when this happened. It wasn't like in a book yet. It wasn't a training yet. So I actually did my year of filling myself up and traveled all over to really get to know who I was. I don't know, Marian, if you've ever had that experience, but it's pretty discombobulating. You just don't know, like, what is important to me. Why am I doing this? Like really asking all those questions. And I think many of us, well, I don't know about everyone, but I know that I went through that period of really wondering what I was doing. And once I came back, I realized I wanted to become a life coach, and I took my doctoral program that I'd done with my husband. We got our doctorates in educational and organizational leadership. And I thought, okay, the best part of that was the mentoring. So I'm going to become a life and transformational coach. So that's what I ended up doing. And in that process, and I will have to talk about this doctorate because it was so fascinating and where it went in leadership. But what was so cool is I ended up reading this book called The Passion Test by Janet and Chris Atwood. And I was like, oh my God, this is so great. It was a fantastic, quick tool to understand what was important to you. And I thought, okay, this is how I'm going to use this tool to actually work with my clients. And so I went and I did the 4-day training as a passion test facilitator, and I just was on fire. I thought, okay, this is amazing. You could be, 5 years old, or you could be 95, and you will still benefit. You could be the most successful person, very clear or as unclear as possible, and you will still benefit. I mean, it was just like anywhere and everywhere, it made sense, and it was simple. So I just said, I'm in, and after that, a month later, there was an invitation. Now, you come up with your 5 passions, because that numerically science tells us that we can only remember 5 to 7 things. So there's 5 passions that you have. And luckily I had my 5, so that whenever you're faced, this is like the big secret to the whole passion test. Whenever you're faced with a choice, a decision, or an opportunity, choose in favor of your passions. And there was some bulletin that went out. Chris and Janet were looking for a director of their programs. And, I just looked at my passions, and this is how it works. And I went, oh my God, one of my passions was to work with an inspiring world-class team. And I had just been part of this 4-day training, and that's what I saw. And I wanted to work with people from all over the world. And I was in, I think, Toronto, Canada at the time, and there were 60 people from all over the world. And so I just went, yes, 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 right? And so I applied, and lo and behold, I became their global passion test director. And, it's been such an honor, Marianne, to truly be part of getting thousands of facilitators all around the world to help touch, like in this beautiful ripple effect, helping others find what the clarity that they need and want, so that they can do what's most important to them. Because, we only have this one life and this one body, right? So that's how it all started.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that story. I really value the passion test, and it's just so helpful to go deep down and find out what excites you at this moment in time. What are the things that really sets your heart on fire? And how often do we ask that question ourselves? So even our friends or people, colleagues, or if you're a leader, your own really employees or organization. And sometimes it's not, I always kind of think, I'm passionate about something, but how did I become passionate is the other question I ask myself. And sometimes experiences, and depending who you experience this, may lead to something becoming a passion. So how do you acquire your passions? It's kind of that makes sense, because there's passions, but that discovery journey is so important. So I just kind of, if you step back a little bit, because
Sure.
If you have two identical company, well, let's say situations, but with different people, surrounded by different types of people,
Right.
You may have different experiences, which may lead to different passions. So I'm kind of just really wondering if, is it really our life experiences that shapes us up, that we discover our passions, or is it something that we have since we are born?
I think it's both. It's both and. Because here's the thing. I mean, we'll look, for example, at your 8 categories. We look at 8 categories to determine, what might be important in that category for you. So for you, Marianne, it could be looking at relationships. What are your relationships with family, friends, your partner, your kids, whatever, whomever that is for you, right? Then you might look at yourself. It could be another category, health. What, is that important to you? In which way? In what way, right? Your career. What's important to you in that? What is it that you're doing? You as a leader, I mean, you would have a beautiful statement, I'm sure, about being a caring leader, right? And the inspiration that you want to carry forth, and the legacy that you want to carry forth. There might be being of service. That's another category. How would you want to be of service? right? So you look at, is that volunteering? Is that creating the legacy, like in your work? Is it for your kids? Like you just kind of get a little more clarity about what that might be. Another is recreation or fun. Like, what do you like to do for fun? So we try to look at the entire education aspect of who we are. We don't try to just do one thing and forget about everything else, because we are whole integrated humans, even though sometimes there has been an old way of thinking, and probably, back a few generations now, that we compartmentalized and we only did, like if we talk about work, that's the only thing. But truly, we're humans. So everything that we do in life, we do at work as well. So it could be, your special thing that you've always wanted and loved to do in your heart of hearts, Marion. And it could be something that you've thought of forever. Like maybe you've always loved animals. Well, maybe you're a leader and yet you love animals. So maybe that's still a passion, but maybe you don't do it as you're not a veterinarian maybe, but instead maybe you have animals, or maybe you go to the animal hospitals and, like hug up the animals, or, whatever it is, or you have some little farm. I don't know. So whatever it is, you play it out in the way it fits for you today. And that's the key thing about passions, is that they change, right? So it's not like you're having this one passion. And if I had done that, that's why and I actually did. I thought that I would be in education for my entire career. Well, 20 some years later, I realized that wasn't really true. I still love to empower kids. I still love to empower, and I kind of expanded it, not just kids now. I want to expand it and empower all people. That was different, right? That kind of shifted. I felt that I had figured out how to teach kids. Now I wanted to learn how to teach and work with adults. That was like my step up for me, my desire, oh, I don't know how to do that, right? Because I hadn't done adults and worked with adults, and that was very engaging for me. So, every time you do the passion test process, you write out a list of 10 things that are most important to you. And if you're in, whatever career you're in, sometimes that might shift a little. Like I have one of my passions is I'm a sought after speaker and trainer, connecting with powerful leaders who support my work. Okay, now I've said this in many different ways, but I have never said it that I'm sought after, and I've never said it that I'm supported. It's so interesting. And I am getting so many requests because I pay attention to your, the 5 things. And this one is showing up in spades. I'm being asked to, I just did a presentation at a human resource group. I'm now talking with you. And so these things, once you put them out in your list, you start to, in your brain, you have this reticulator activating system, this filter, and it's filtering out what is important. So whether it's in work and in life, these things start to show up because they're now, on your list, and you're like paying attention, while before you might not have. So I don't know, Marion, can you relate to, if you were to just think of one thing that inspired you, and it doesn't even have to be a passion, because passion can be a loaded word. Okay, so even Marion, think of one thing that has meaning to you. What would you say would be meaningful to you around your work? You've told me.
Well, I love it. So this is really a topic that I'm really deeply passionate about, and that's why I love so much this conversation with a passion test. Well, for me, it's not just helping people, find their next role or next placement. For me, is actually how can I actually help more people getting into meaningful placements of work where they're thriving, not surviving. Why? Because if you're in a place where you really love or you thrive, your family will feel it. And that's something deeply important to me. Your friends will feel it, your relationships, your community will feel it. You will shine, you will radiate. Since most of our time we spend at work, that is very important and dear to me. And I would love to um, find that through all the tools and assessment, that consistency. Yes, we do it, but sometimes how can we do it 10 out of 10? That's what I'm deeply passionate about. And really, because I know the impact. If we help more leaders and more people get into a work where they are really thriving, not surviving, that will make a profound difference. And that's why I look at leaders who care, because leaders who care are often the ones who can create the conditions, and they really deeply care about the team and about the environment, and really show up for others. So that way we help them fulfill their vision by attracting and exceptionally gifted talent to be able to deliver on that, and not just deliver on the mission, but also enjoy the journey. Because when you have that attraction, it makes a profound difference. It's a win-win-win across all of it, and it just makes that impact. Can you imagine, if you place a CEO of 20,000 people company, that is an average size of family of four. We're talking about 80,000 people are affected.
Right. And I actually love what you just said, because you kind of talk, so your passion is something that like motivates you, like it, and you've said many things now, and some of those other things like the teams and the families, those all in the passion test world, we call them markers. And markers are like the guideposts or the signposts that are the evidence that you're actually, so if you saw, like 1,000 families now thriving, and you'd have to actually really identify, what does thriving look like, or if you had teams that were like super effective. Go ahead.
I can define that very easily.
Cool. Very good.
For me, thriving means where people, first of all, not only having financial abundance. That's important, because I believe financial abundance can make a difference to people's lives. And
so that would be one marker. That's
for
beautiful.
sure. And why? Because that will free them up. And second thing is, why having financial abundance, you're also in control of your time. You decide where to spend. You're free. You're in charge of your own time, because that's one of the most precious things we have in our life.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in a deathbed today, you will not be asking for more friends or more money. You'll be asking for more time. So time is super essential for it. And on a second, and the third piece that I see that is important is, how can you be deep down, your heart and mind beat together? You have that deep calm, and you've not crossed your values, so you have that peace, inner peace with yourself, where you do not actually worry, you do not feel you've done the wrong thing, or you cannot sleep because you've basically violated some of your values and principles. So for me, these are three important elements that I define as people are thriving. Of course, there's others, like they got to be having a good health. Families also, they have good relationships. For me, relationships are key, because if you can only buy things with money, then you're poor. Yes. Whatever money can buy, relationships can pay for it. So you have great relationships there. People are really showing up, and I can talk about 4 different categories of relationship we need to have. But these are just a few of the important things that I look at in a organization, in a person or a setup. And because based on that, you can organize your business. So what does it mean to have more free time and financial business? Maybe if you're a business owner, you organize your time where you develop others, you take care of others, so they can free you up, so they will not worry that if they make a decision, they make a mistake, you will fire them off or have fear. You got to remove fear if you want to have more free time. So that's really linked to some of those, and that comes with your character. So you got to go through a journey in order to be able to do that. So it's not one thing, but these are a few that I look at holistically, because they really make a difference.
No, that's really beautiful, because see, here's the thing. When a person knows what is important to them, and there's lots of studies that have shown that the people that are clear about what motivates them, they're going to say yes to those things and then no to everything else. And that's where success really shows up, because you're committed to those things that are most important to you in work or in life. And it's both, right? So, you said something about survive or thrive. And I think that's really important, because when you're someone in business and you don't know what's important to you, you're all over the place. You're not going to thrive. But when you get that crystal clarity, then things you just said that beautiful, I don't know if you said the word, but I heard alignment. You come into this peace and alignment.
Yep.
Because now you're, everything's clicking, like click, 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 right? And now you've got boom, clarity, right? And I think that is very powerful. T. Harv Eker says clarity is power. And it's so true, because then everything is moving in the same direction. And I think that is what you're saying. At least that's what I'm hearing. And yes, I mean, to me, that gets me very excited, because then also what you're saying is that thriving is about really taking care of those things that inspire you. Because here's the thing, some people will say, Marianne, they don't know what they're passionate about. So then ask yourself, what do you like? What has been important to you? Sometime throughout your life, you have found something that you liked. So then write that down, okay? Because here's, some, like you, Marianne, you're very clear, okay? I get that right away, and it's awesome. But not everyone is as clear, and not everyone, and here's the thing. Today, Marianne, this is your clarity. In 6 months, you might want to be checking in. That's why that passion test process, it becomes a prioritization tool, and then it becomes a decision-making tool. So you use your 5 passions as a decision-making tool. Every time you're asked, for, with a choice, decision, there's an opportunity that shows up, you then get to go, okay, so I want to leave this legacy, or I want to create these teams, or I want that financial freedom. I'm going to say yes to this, and I'm definitely going to say no to that, because that takes me way off, right? So you're always asking, does this take me closer to living my passions? And if it's a yes, then you just say absolutely. And if it's a it's a no, then you just say no, thank you. And that's how we need to live our life. And a lot of business owners, I'm hearing, a lot of professionals right now are feeling like slightly out of balance or off. I don't know if you've noticed that. Have you? Because and look, there's been so many stress factors, going back 2 years all the way through from the pandemic, and World War III. I mean, like, so many stress factors that have impacted us, and people are actually choosing not to go to work because of whatever it is that has shifted. Their priorities have shifted. Maybe they believe that they deserve more money, so they're going to go for that job. Or maybe they realize, I need to do something that has more flexible scheduling. So businesses also have to shift with these changes. So organizations need to figure out what their passions are, right? Because, when we talk about the individual, the organization is also like a living being. And and there's organizational values, and there's organizational passions. And the passion test for business is actually a tool that we use with organizations. Either it's a one-time, a solopreneur, or it's a big corporate organization with big teams. So you can use it in whatever way, and the process is a little different because you're looking for, let's say, in an organization, you're looking for the unique contribution of, for example, I'll give you an example for the Enlightened Alliances group, the group that I'm working with as Global Passion Test Director. Our unique contribution is inspiring transformation through love and service to all humanity. Inspiring transformation through love and service to all humanity. That's their, you could say, their mission, or I would say the vision. And in this case, when you as an employee or a consultant or a facilitator come in and you listen and hear that, you go, I'm lined up like that. That's it. So for me, when I remember being part of the leadership team, when we came up with that unique contribution was so helpful to me because I said, I'm in the right place. So when an organization has their unique contribution or vision, and then also your organizational passions, then you can also look at what does each of these passions look like. I was just listening to a woman named Ann Rhodes, and she's a CEO of an organization called People Inc., INC, and she was in Southwest Airlines. She actually still runs JetBlue and does a whole lot with that company in the airline business. And, it was fascinating to hear how they have their values. And that's what you were talking about, Marianne, is the values are so important. And then what does it look like? What's the behavior of that value with all your people? And that's the leaders, and that's the employees, and that's the board members, that's everyone. And when you can see how that value plays out in a behavior, or as evidence, or markers in the passion test world, it is powerful. I mean, everyone starts to go, oh, I get it now, right?
I love what you bring in this topic, because my question would be, okay, when I look at whether it's organization or a leader or somebody who is starting out in their career, there's all those three things are actually common across all of those categories. And I look at three things, and passions is one of them.
Yes.
What sets you on fire or your organization's on fire? Then you can talk about the behaviors that goes with it. The other thing is looking at whether as an individual or as an organization, look at your strengths. What are your key strengths? Because there's, realistically speaking, when you know what you're really good at as a company or as an individual, and then you start to be aware of your key passions, what excites you at this moment in time, what sets you on fire. And then you look at the third category is your values, and say, what are the red liners that are we not going to cross as an organization or as an individual?
Absolutely.
That is a very powerful self-awareness.
Yes.
And a great really start for anyone who is not know what to do at this moment, or is lost their way or lost their passion. Just go deep down and really go through that process, really self-reflect and find out what are you, and we can very quickly ask with what are people around you really think of you, really ask them to be honest and say, what do you really think of me when you see me? What are the first things that come to you? And that will give you a good reflection of what their perception of you is, and your strengths as well. And then, of course, when you unite the passion and strengths, that's very powerful. It can give you guidance and light, a way to go.
Yes, it can. And an interesting thing is that sometimes our strengths are not what we are passionate about. It's very interesting. So I love that you just said that when you can connect them in support. So let's say your strength is administrating. Okay, let's just say that would be me. And honestly, that's not something I'm passionate about as much as I'm passionate about inspiring transformation through love in service to humanity. And so when I can take my strength of administrating and bring it in support of that passion, that makes all the difference. So I love how you're saying that there is a connection. And then the values, there's lots of, do you have a particular tool that you use to get clear about your values? Because I use, I think it's, I hope I'm going to say this right, Bartlett Assessment. And they have a free thing for people, and you come up with 10 passions or values, not passions, but values that are important to you. And it's helpful to then see, like you're saying, how those values are really the foundation for what your passions are.
No, I love that you just asked this. And the tools that we use, and we're not advertising any of it, just saying that we've actually so many tools out there. And
There are.
I'm really interested into finding those ones that really make a difference. Strengths Finder is one of them that we use just to find the strengths, and that could be also used for organizational.
Yeah.
I love the passion test, so definitely for the passions and the values. Of course, you mentioned Bartlett Outlet. Is there any other tools that made an impression on you? Because that may be useful for the audience.
So there, well, for values, there's not many that I think are super helpful. The one that I just mentioned, and I'll send you the link to it. Okay, so I make sure that I'm saying the right name, but it's free, and it's also for people. But if you want to work in a corporate setting, then I think there's a different link that you can go to. But it's very, I think, simple and powerful, because you come up with 10 values, and I've done it every year, and it shifts somewhat and it changes. And I thought, wow, I wouldn't have I wouldn't have thought that, because again, our brain wants to think that we're doing the same thing over and over again, but the reality as humans is that we are changing all the time. And so we got to keep up, and our brain has to create new neural pathways when that happens, right?
I have
Yeah, go ahead.
I have a question, because I'm just really curious to get your thoughts on this. Do you think our values and passions or strengths are changing over time?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think values shift, and I think our passions change. Yes. And why is that? Because different things are happening around you, as well as what might be you're feeling internally. So, if, for example, during the pandemic, when it was first started, 2020, I remember my passion for exercise was my third. When I went through the passion test process, and it became my number one. Health and exercise became my number one. It had never been that way before. I actually got so excited and motivated that I actually now have, for the third year, been teaching an exercise Zoom class 3 times a week, because I at the time didn't feel safe to go into gyms, obviously, for a number of reasons. And even now, people don't want to travel. You see, like, priorities shifted. People don't want to get in their car to go to the gym, or at least the people I'm working with. And some people are feeling stronger and more fit and more committed, because they know I'm going to show up. And that's why I did this. I just kind of did this call to action and asked friends, people I knew, to exercise with me, because I didn't want to be a couch potato, because I thought, oh my gosh, I was going to the gym, 3 times a week. Exercise is important. It always has been important. So it just shifted in how it showed up, and then how important it became to me.
What about strengths? Do you think and believe that people's strengths change or evolve over time?
Strengths. Oh, that's an interesting one. Absolutely. Because again, it's about mastery, or at least this is how I see it. So if I am, let's say, a piano player, but I'm an okay piano player, then if I continue to practice, I'm going to become a really great piano player. That would be a strength as a pianist. At least that's how I'm looking at it. Is that what you mean?
Well, I also believe that is the case because we evolve, and like I really have proven myself that the character is something that we can change and build over for the whole of our life. So it's not. And sometimes people say, well, if you haven't changed by the age of whatever, you will not change. That is not true. You can change, and I have done it with myself, and you can really make a profound difference because the character, comes from the Greek word chisel, so which means you kind of shape that through the whole of your life.
Yes.
And it's based on a number of things. So, and I also believe that the strengths change and evolve. Even though I had a very interesting discussion recently with Strengths Finder, and they feel they've done a study that the strengths stay with you for the rest of your life, which is a very interesting finding. I don't know, to be honest. I yet of what it is. I've because I've taken a couple of times the strengths. Well, both actually have seen people rather than me personally taken a couple of different times, and different strengths showed in the top 5, like what you would have done
Yeah, right.
in the passion test, which is an interesting find, to be honest, because it could be a mental state, you could be in different situation. So I feel that we evolve,
Right.
and as human beings, and our strengths evolve, our passions can change, and our values can shift. I guess what you mentioned.
Absolutely. And I think this in the Strength Finder, like I know one of mine is positivity and
Same.
yeah. So, if I was to think about that, I was talking more with the piano as a skill and strength versus an inner strength. And I think, again, positivity or strength finders is often kind of core things that are important to you. And so strength finders and I think the passion test actually go really well together. And again, if someone is listening right now and they're saying, okay, well, what can I do right now? I think there's like a number of practices, and I like to keep it simple so that if you've got these 4 or 5 things, then you are going to just go screaming along in work and business and in life, feeling like you are thriving. And I think the first thing is to get a real solid foundation of what kind of self-reflective practices work for you, and their awareness practices, like how do you feel, like what's important to you, what gives you a sense of connecting to yourself, whether it's meditation, whether it's guided meditations, or maybe it's for you running. Some people like to just run or do meditative walks. It could be yoga. It's whatever it does to come back to your body and really understand what's happening for you every day. I'm not talking like once a week. I'm talking every day, checking in. How do you feel? What's going on for you? Like what's going on with your body? Your body gives us such incredible information. So figuring out what those tools are for your own self-reflection. I journal, every day I commit to journaling. And I have I created these journals because I felt like people with the blank journals were and which is a wonderful thing. And it's very timely for some, you could just write whatever, or you could just download what's bothering you. What I was trying to do is to help people very specifically connect to their body. I remember I was so numbed out once upon a time that I didn't know that I had a body. I swear to, it was like, yeah, it was scary. So, connecting the head with the heart, like you had talked about before, Marion, is so important. So if people can just figure out like a handful of things that you're going to go to, like for me, it's journaling, it's sitting quietly and meditating, could be doing reading something that feels really good to you, could be going outside and just observing, right? And then the other piece is to engage your brilliance and to help engage other people's brilliance. And to me, That could be, the passion test. It could be strengths finders. It could be all those DISC training. It could be, it could be whatever training that Myers-Briggs, like whatever it is. So you understand what are your strengths, what are your passions, right? So that you can really engage those. And then the other, to me, is you talked, and I would love to hear more, and I don't know if this is going to be the time, but caring leadership, so how I talk about being an intuitive leader, right? And it comes from my foundation of understanding. When I went back, if I go back to my doctorate, I studied servant leadership, and I studied it in the context of education. And 20 some years ago, servant leadership was more known in the spiritual realm or the religious realm, with Mother Teresa, like those kinds of folks who were doing other kinds of good things, serving people. And Martin Luther King, so there are people who, from the servant leadership position, I took that and brought it into what I think is today, for me, because servant leadership is a phenomenal, really phenomenal philosophy and understanding of leadership. And Robert Greenleaf is the one who actually kind of created this and brought it from more of the spiritual religious institutions into corporate institutions in AT&T in the 70s. He was a VP of AT&T, vice president, and he was very motivated to take that sense of serving others into corporate. And I remember when I first learned about this, I was like, oh my gosh, that's it. That is who I am, way more than telling you what to do. Like the top-down leader, that was not me. And the servant leader is really listening far more, and listening for what is needed, and then letting others, kind of supporting them to move in that direction. And being a model of really making sure that everyone is benefiting, that no one is either being left out or, it's going to be hurt by whatever it is that they're doing. So I took it as intuitive leadership, because I feel like that's the, I stand on the shoulders of servant leadership of Robert Greenleaf's work. And I believe that an intuitive leader is very much someone who's a whole person, integrated left and right hemispheres, so you're using the logical, linear parts as well as the feeling, emotional, creative parts to you. You're working with the masculine and the feminine aspects. You're working with, you talked about the seasons earlier. I don't know if it was while we're being recorded, but you talk about the seasons, and that is, all 4 seasons are like the whole aspect of nature, right? Life. And that's the same thing with an intuitive leader. We're looking at the whole person. Nothing is left out. And so, there's a beautiful flow that can happen when you're an intuitive leader. You're in service to others, but you're also listening to, the feelings and the practical, and blending it into whatever it looks like for each person. So that's 3 things. And then I want to just say one more thing, Marianne, because I think this last piece is so important, that when you're doing business, that you're also doing life as well, that you're creating ongoing habits with either the people in your organization or the people in your life, I would say. Ongoing habits, I'm talking about things like, so how are you doing? Like checking in, like what is important to you today? How was your night last night? Or, there's certain connection exercises that you can do. And also just how do you connect to yourself again, but also saying, we care about each other. So how are we going to connect? Like, I appreciate you. Saying appreciations is a massive way to say, I really care about you. And the reason I care about you is because of what you're doing. The fact, like, just say, Marion, the fact that you are doing this work on caring leadership and inspiring and helping other leaders to be the best that they can be, to me, I thank you for that, because that in itself is inspiring. And I'm so grateful. Really, honestly, that is an amazing thing to know that there's a person like you out there who's wanting to share this important concept and I guess really philosophy. And so this is the last thing, that those ongoing connection habits are what you want to be bringing forward. And so self-reflection, engaging brilliance, intuitive leadership, and ongoing connection habits, I think, are critical to building an important organization. And then, to me, I would take it even a step further and look at how everything we do is for healing and transformation. Because ultimately, there's this ripple effect that we're really impacting. I'm impacting myself. If I'm changing and growing and doing my work, and then I'm talking to you, then it's going to impact you. And then, then that's going to impact the community, and then it's going to impact society and the planet, right? So there's these so many layers of this ripple effect that is beautiful.
I thank you for sharing. I love really very much when I talk about care. It's for me this inspiration exactly of servant leadership is it right in the center, is the foundation. It's not an easy one, and not very many people can do that because it's tough. The reality is really tough to be able to find strength. And when it really works, the reason why you see consistency with really the kind of blessing and God is because it's only possible when you're blessed to have the power to serve like that, and that only comes through God and the Holy Spirit. So, and I just want to highlight something that it's you can't master category by category in your life. You will not have a long enough life to be able to. It's just no. I'm gonna master money for the next 10 years. I'm gonna master relationships. You don't have life. It doesn't work like that. It's you got to study and understand the divine principles of how to live a extraordinary life. And for me, the greatest authority in care is Jesus. It's one thing that to come and die for somebody that you love. The other thing is to come and die for somebody who hates you or doesn't like you. And for me, I don't see that that often, and that's why I'm like a scientist looking into like a magnifying glass of those stories and history, and because success leaves clues, and you want to find out what those are and those philosophies. And that's why there is a consistency in that, because that's how things can happen. The problem is that we don't spend time to understand those principles or learn. And that's why we do a lot of mistakes in life as human beings, and we don't have necessarily always that guidance. And it's tough because sometimes those choices we make, they have massive consequences in our life.
Sure.
So
I would agree.
It is very interesting topic that you're touching into on here, and I love that discussion has been fantastic, because it's really there's so much that it's going on out there. And I also feel that in order to really make a difference, and by the way, I'm also here to serve. I know that whatever I do, what you see as a success and everything is not me. It's a blessing. It's God's blessing. Without Him, I'm nothing. That's the reality. And for me, what is really key here is that people really understand that we are here with a reason, for a reason. We're not just here to get by. And whatever time we have, we're here to serve and make a difference, positive difference, hopefully, because it could be both. You said transformation, but I always say add just one word to when you talk about transformation: positive transformation, because transformation could be different ways, and different, and change as well could be different in a different way. So hopefully that's a positive. We're here to positively impact the world. It's a living organism. It's perfect as it is, but we can hopefully make it a better place and more caring place through our own examples, and showing that we really, if we find the consistency of how to live a life that really is passionate life. To talk about passionate, passion test, but also your living wonder, really have it all. Um, it's obviously something that there is a certain principles and keys that you need to follow, and it's possible to achieve it. And that's what I'm really very interested to give stage to those leaders that have made such an impact, that have such a positive difference to the world, and really appreciate and value the work you do.
That's awesome. I don't. Do we need to wrap it up?
Yeah, we're just any final final kind of comments here.
Okay. Well, I'll just say, because that was so beautiful. Oh my gosh! And I just, if people have don't have a connection to God or spirit or whatever, that they remember that there's nature and the outdoors, and there's an element of awe that I can kind of understand when I go outside. And, if whether we call it God, whether we call it spirit, great spirit, whether we call it nature.
People call it inner voice, Chinese, some call it chi, and whatever.
Yeah, right.
For me, it's the Holy Spirit, of course. But you're right. For different people, you're right. That connection is very important. And I think before you guide someone, make sure that you're not blind guiding the blind. Take deep responsibility and care in who you are and what you talk about, because growing a business or growing yourself on the wrong principles and guiding people in the wrong direction is not trouble. It's double trouble or triple trouble, and you will suffer. So make sure you really get your stuff right and go deep down before you actually do anything. I just speak from experience, and it's not easy to do things, but
focus on what you want. Focus on what you want.
And also take care of yourself. My message to everyone there is take care of you spiritually, mentally, physically. That's what I do when I wake up 5 a.m, pray, and then go to listening to upgrade myself and different things. And I train, and then I have my breakfast at 8:30 or so. And that helps me. The breakfast is, of course, helps for the brain, the heart, the protein I need. And then I'm ready to serve and give back, because when I've taken care of myself, I can show up for the others and really make a difference. And hopefully I have enough energy when I get back home to treat, if we talk about business, treat your family as the most important customer you ever have. Please do that. This is essential. And I know we won't make mistakes, and I have. And believe me, you don't want to make that mistake. That's really something which you really got to take very dear. Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it, all that you do.
Have a fantastic serving this year, and thank you so much for taking the time, Karin.
You bet. Thank you.